Eric Burlison here, your congressman from Southwest Missouri. I'm here today to explain to you my work on the debt ceiling bill. Before we get to that, I want to, one, provide you an overlook of the fiscal state of our country, and then two, talk about the negotiations that took place, and finally, three, tell you where I stand in all of this. Let me start with this. The national debt is now at $31.7 trillion. That's an insane amount of money by itself. But if you look at this graph and compare it to where we were just 20 years ago, it was $6.7 trillion. So in the span of just 20 years, Congress has managed to add $25 trillion to our national debt. Even if you look at the last 3 years, you'll see that COVID-fueled reckless spending exacerbated our debt crisis by adding $4.8 trillion to our debt. Let me be clear. The federal government collected an all-time high in taxes last year. So no, this is not a revenue problem. It's a spending problem. The state of our nation's fiscal health is so bad that the net interest of our debt will become the largest line item in our budget over the next several decades and exceed the Pentagon's budget in just 2028. So it's apparent the United States has a serious debt problem. Now, let's talk about the debt ceiling. The U.S. hit the debt ceiling in January of this year. We are currently over $31 trillion in debt. If the debt limit remains unchanged, the government's ability to borrow using these measures will be exhausted between July and September of this year. The Democrats' initial offer was to eliminate the debt ceiling altogether so that they can spend unlimited amounts of your money on their wish list. Then they moved to wanting a clean debt ceiling increase with no spending cuts or reforms. That's President Biden's current position. Do nothing about the problem, but just raise the debt ceiling. Both of those ideas are non-starters. I made it clear that if I were to vote for the debt ceiling, there must be real cuts. Now, Speaker McCarthy's first offer fell short. I didn't think it went far enough, so I continued to push. And I sat down with Speaker McCarthy and made it clear these cuts need to be real and upfront. So this is what I asked for, and also what is included in the final package. The first ask was to cut spending. My number one priority since day one was to make real cuts up front. And we will do this by ending President Biden's $400 billion student loan bailout, rescinding the unspent COVID funds, recouping the $80 billion in IRS expansion funds, the 87,000 new IRS agents, and taking back the billions of wasteful climate change spending that's in the Inflation Reduction Act. The second important thing was to cap future spending by returning discretionary spending back to 2022 levels and keep it there for the next 10 years with a moderate increase. This 10-year spending cap puts our budget on a better path to being balanced while protecting Social Security and Medicare. According to the Congressional Budget Office, these asks combined will save $4.8 trillion over the next 10 years. The third part of this is to grow the economy by stopping overreaching bureaucrats from implementing regulations without congressional approval and restoring the Clinton-era work requirements on able-bodied welfare recipients. Additionally, the Republican plan to help lower gas prices and utility bills needed to be included in this package. So this is what's inside the now passed package. From everything between stopping the student loan bailout, work requirements for welfare, and returning our country to 2022 levels of spending, we, the conservatives, got what we asked for. I worked with other conservatives in the conference and used the debt ceiling as leverage to make significant spending cuts. Conservatives in this town normally get rolled because we never have leverage. This is the best leverage we had to cut spending. And while it makes me sick, I hate that this is what we had to give, but we are doing something that conservatives have never done, which is win in a debt ceiling negotiation. But more importantly, we're putting ourselves in a position next time around where we can take more bites at the apple. We can demand more cuts and make more changes again next year. So that's the package as it stands. It's now with the Senate to pass. Now here are my thoughts. Did I like voting to raise the debt ceiling? No, I absolutely hated it. Did I like the idea of getting the most significant cuts in a generation? Yes. We know that this debt ceiling proposal still has to go to the Senate, and the president's going to have to agree to it. But I've made it clear to Speaker McCarthy and other members, this is the deal. If the Speaker comes back with some watered-down version of the current proposals, there are conservative members like myself ready to vote against it when it comes back. And this package, as it's passed, is supported by several conservative groups, including Heritage Action, Freedom Works, and Americans for Prosperity. The bottom line is this. Southwest Missouri sent me to Congress to change how the federal government operates. This place is broken. But this package, as it is, puts us on a path to reversing course, reforming the institution, but more importantly, puts the next generation of Americans in a better place. I'm Eric Burlison. Thank you for watching.